another big international focus, certainly a big focus for us over here. Shubhanshu Shukla, the Indian astronaut, is now on his first day, first full day at the International Space Station. When is it day and when is it night at the International Space Station, of course, is another point which Pallav Bagla, who's with me, will talk about. But what happens now in terms of his mission? We've got this report.
रहते तो मेरे स्पेस सूट पे तिरंगा मेरे शोल्डर्स पे था.
The International Space Station is a very special place. The gravity is low. So what will Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, India's first Gaganyatri to the International Space Station, eat? Most of the foods is prepared by NASA, but there will be some items which go as Indian cuisine. Indian Space Research Organization tells me the special foods which have been prepared for Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla includes mango nectar. So special mango nectar for Shubhanshu Shukla in space, and there is also rice. India's rice is very different from other parts of the world. So rice for Shubhanshu Shukla, among the sweet dish which he will carry or he will be fed in the International Space Station, moong dal halwa. Moong dal halwa is always very good. All of these will be packaged in a very special manner so that Group Captain Shukla can have them in space. Mango nectar will be sipped through a sipper. I'm told having rice is very tricky at the International Space Station. Most of the world uses sticky rice, but India uses a rice which doesn't stick. So this may well fly around in the International Space Station. Moong dal halwa, anyway, would be a good dessert, full of energy and very tasty. So some of the food items with Indian cuisine, which India's Gaganyatri will have at the International Space Station. With camera person Xavier Thomas in New Delhi, Pallav Bagla for NDTV.
Now, Pallav, was that a report about eating that food, or are we talking about space?
It is about both. I'm a foodie. I love that. And we needed to showcase what he would be eating. So what better way than eating
he's going to
it?
be sharing that or has shared that with fellow astronauts?
We do not know. I haven't seen a picture of him sharing it. He would have had his first dinner with the 11 astronauts because that is a tradition that the breakfast and lunch is separate, but the dinner is together. There are 11 astronauts, all of them would be there. And he has carried moong dal halwa and carrot halwa essentially to share with the fellow astronauts there as a sweet dish. So either now or maybe it could be on America's Independence Day. Who knows? They could have a party there and the party would be grand in space.
Typically, what do they eat in the International Space Station? It's pre-cooked, obviously. And is it something, in what form is the food?
Oh, it's mostly semi-solid food, I'm told. It's specially packaged. Each astronaut gets, for each meal, a specially packaged package.
With a certain calorific value.
Oh, that is all pre-decided. Calorific value, balanced diet, enough proteins, enough calories, enough micronutrients, all of that is well decided. And each one gets a package they choose from. And on special occasions, they have special foods, like he's carrying moong dal halwa, he's carrying this. Also, he's carrying rajma chawal. I'm told he's also carrying a special Jaipuri vegetable mix. And all of this is essentially prepared by NASA, and because they don't allow anything to go from anywhere else because they fear contamination on the International Space Station. So it's prepared by NASA and taken there by Group Captain Shukla. And so essentially it's going to be high quality, very nutritious food, but no fresh vegetables and no fresh fruits. So that is what most astronauts crave for when they have long stay at the International Space Station.
And Pallav, what exactly is he going to be doing in terms of the science experiments? Any clarity on that?
What we know is that he would be conducting 7, I'm talking of Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, he'll be conducting 7 experiments which have been sent by Indian principal investigators, which includes growing some microalgae, doing some experiments on mussels, doing some experiment on eyes and computers. A very basic experiment, essentially India is getting into astrobiology for the first time. So these are very simple experiments, not the complicated experiments which we have seen between NASA, which NASA does, where they flew one twin who was in space and we had a twin on Earth, and they did the entire genomics of the person who's in space and on Earth. Extremely complicated science experiments have already been done, but India is making the first steps. Let's appreciate that. There are also 5 experiments which NASA and ISRO are doing, and there is absolutely no clarity on what those experiments are, but that they will be doing and that Shubhanshu would be doing. This is a special collaboration between NASA and ISRO, and for some reason there is immense secrecy about that. I've been repeatedly asking why that secrecy if it's a human biology experiment. I presume these are experiments to understand how the Indian biology or the Indian person behaves in space, because they don't have that much data on Indians in space. I presume that is what it would be, but we'll have to wait and watch if we get the details. But there are also 3 events he has, very interesting ones, 2 with schools and specialists and 1 with a VIP. He has a busy day, and I'm sure the first day in space where he had his first meals and first nap, it is a packed day, 12.5 hours of intense work, and by now he must have seen how India looks like from space several times.
So 13 days left, right, Pallav?
It's a 14-day mission. So 13 days are left. But depends on when you start counting them from, whether you count from liftoff or you count from, again.
And the Crew Dragon remains attached to the International Space Station, and so that's their ride back as well.
The Grace Dragon is attached to the International Space Station. It's the same vehicle they will take to come back. It has performed excellently on the way up.
And is the same crew going back along with Shubhanshu?
Yes, all 4 are, as they say,
for just this mission,
they say they are guests. The 7 crew who are there are the astronauts from NASA and JAXA and Russia. They are the Expedition 73 astronauts who are there, who do bulk of the maintenance and the specialist experiments. The 4 crew have gone. 3 of them are specialists, 1 commander, and the commander is really not going to be doing any experimentation on her own because she is guiding them. Peggy Whitson is guiding them. That's very clear. On this Axiom mission, the commander is not undertaking any specialist experiment.
So she's just the supervisor in a sense.
She's the supervisor. She's going to help them. Essentially, if you ask me, Peggy Whitson is mentoring Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla for India's Gaganyaan mission, which is a very important step for us and a very important step for Group Captain Shukla to be mentored by a legendary astronaut like Peggy Whitson, who's entering the Hall of Fame for astronauts this year. She has an immense track record and she is known to be a great leader. So he's being mentored by the best of the best, and that is very helpful for India's Gaganyaan program.
Now, a lot of the data that Shubhanshu Shukla collects is something that he's going to pass on to the ISRO space program. I found it particularly interesting when you said that our own biology is somewhat, I mean, it's not identical to, genetically.
It can't be.
Right. And therefore, to get, the characteristics of, Indian genes operating in space or how it functions, that's profound science on which there's been virtually no research, perhaps none.
Except when Rakesh Sharma went up, we have some. We have of Indian
how many
astronauts of Indian origin who have gone there. So some data is available, but Indian citizen going with a long established tradition from India, a test pilot, a very fit one, going there and then doing some experiments. It will help not just India, but also I think it will add to the great repertoire of information which NASA has on how human bodies perform in space.
So it's going to be quite a clutter on the International Space Station. It's at maximum capacity, right?
There are 11 people. The Space 11 is there, and but it's a large place.
Relatively speaking.
Relatively large space because it's the size of a football field, and occasionally astronauts go around the station and they don't find anybody, and sometimes I'm told they say the astronauts have gone for a walk. That's why you don't see them, because it is so large. That's the joke which is there in the International Space Station, because it's so large, and each
India's
one is working
own
in
space station in 2035 is not going to be that large, is it? It will be much smaller to begin with.
Obviously, 2028 we propose to have our first module up in space. We already have a small orbiting laboratory, the POEM, which is the last stage of the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, and we've flown it several times and done amazing experiments on that. So in a way, we've had our own small little space station up and running, but a full-fledged one we'll have by 2035. Obviously much smaller, but it will be ours. We will decide what we need to do there, and it's essentially preparing the country for commercialization of space and commercialization of the low Earth orbit.
All right, Pallav, great speaking to you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, for the benefit of our viewers, this mission has attracted so much attention. It is absolutely critical for the Indian Space Research Organization to have Shubhanshu Shukla over there. While he is a member of the Gaganyaan team, he wouldn't necessarily be one of the pilots on that Gaganyaan mission, but certainly a lot of his experiences would be transferred. There's also a backup Indian pilot over there who was there in the United States in case Shubhanshu didn't ultimately lift off on this mission, but he did. But it's this team which is being built up now when it comes to Gaganyaan, and the hope is that we'd have our crew launch in 2028. It's going to be not just a one-off, it's going to be a continuing process, and therefore the recruitment scheme for Indian astronauts going up would expand, possibly to include civilians in the future. There is, of course, our big plan to build an international space station, perhaps get humans on board, Indians onto the surface of the moon as well. It's not the sky which is the limit, it's truly well beyond the skies, and space which is the limit, and very much the final frontier. We'll leave it over there. Earlier on today, I spoke to Muriba Jha, Professor of Aerospace Engineering at the University of Texas. This is what he told me. Well, there's genuine interest, not just here in India, but around the world on this particular mission of the Crew Dragon to the International Space Station. Shubhanshu Shukla, the Indian astronaut, is the first Indian astronaut up in space in more than 4 decades. What is this mission all about? And for his thoughts on India's space program, I'm joined by Muriba Jha, Professor of Aerospace Engineering and Engineering Mechanics at the University of Texas at Austin. Professor, thanks very much for being with us.
Namaskar.
Namaste to you as well. There's a lot of interest in this particular mission. You would understand for us here in India, especially space enthusiasts like me, to have an Indian in space after 4 decades is a pretty big deal. How do you think this is important in terms of India gaining an understanding and knowledge of how it works in space as we progress with our own space program?
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much for the opportunity to engage with you and the people of India. I feel that this opportunity that Shuks, as he's called, is giving to India is, even though this mission on Axiom 4 is something that a commercial person could have done, it still gives India firsthand experience in participating in space, in being on orbit, in being in the space station. And so this is valuable experience as India seeks to establish its own presence in space, especially with upcoming missions that Narendra Modi promised the people that would happen in 2022, but for a variety of reasons has not happened yet.
So the next big goal for the Indian Space Research Organization is what we call Gaganyaan. That's the crewed mission. If everything works out, that should take place in 2028. And India is doing it all alone, unlike this mission, which of course is an international effort. But in terms of rocketry, in terms of the module itself, in terms of all the tests going on, the habitation systems being developed, it's all being done essentially in India. How do you look at the Indian Space Research Program, which is now trying to achieve, crewed flight, manned flight, because it's really developed strongly, hasn't it, over the last several decades?
It has, and I've been very pleased to see the development of the Indian space program. I have colleagues that work for Israel, and also I have other colleagues that are part of India's entrepreneurial space sector. It's growing rapidly. Everybody is quite technically competent in being able to make these things happen. And my hope is that as India participates in developing its own sovereign capability, that it does it in a way that shows leadership to the rest of the world in terms of being regenerative, being restorative, and being healing to the space environment.
Professor Jha, how important is it for India to actually master, for example, rocketry when it comes to crewed missions? How important is it for India to master its own crewed modules? Because a lot of this stuff you can't just buy off the shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if we could all go to a store one day and get this, that would be amazing. But as you said, you can't get these things off of shelves. And I feel it's very important for countries to have their own sovereign capability to do these things, because at the end of the day, India has its own agenda, its own interests. Indian people have their own desires for how they evolve and interact with space, and being forced to go through some third party, especially at the whims of geopolitical tensions, because you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. That should be intolerable, you know. So yeah, India definitely needs its own sovereign capability.
Professor Jha, there's this huge debate. It's there across the world on robotic missions or uncrewed missions versus crewed missions, which require a lot more technology, a lot more systems, much more redundancy, and a lot more expense. As an aerospace engineer yourself, how do you view the potential of crewed missions versus uncrewed missions as we around the world progress to deep space?
We need a little bit of both. I mean, you know, when right here you can see behind me there's an ocean. I'm currently in Cozumel, and when we explore the ocean, it's not just robots exploring the ocean, it's people as well. And there's a lot that we learn just by having a human presence in the ocean. So we need a little bit of both in space. The same thing. We need robotic missions as much as possible to minimize the risk to life and to collect data in ways that humans can't. But at the same time, we need to be visitors of outer space and as humans and participate directly. So both are important.
Professor Jha, are you impressed by the Indian Space Research Organization's frugal engineering? The fact that we had a Mars orbiter, we were the first to get an orbiter into Mars on the very first attempt at the cost of less than a mainstream Hollywood movie. I know that frugal engineering has its limitations. You can't always be frugal, but it is impressive, right, that we have been able to do this at this cost level.
Absolutely. I think that India's ability to access space in a way that is economically cheap is excellent. It is very impressive. I applaud that. I will say this, whatever expenses are saved in accessing space should be looked at into how to restore and regenerate space. And like I said, part of my background, my work in space is as a celestial steward. And as you've probably heard, there's lots of space debris and these sorts of things. The way that we're behaving in space globally is with a colonial mindset, which is not good. It's extractive and exploitive, but we need things that are regenerative and restorative. And I feel that deep within India's ethos as a people, this idea of being in sacred coherence with the environment is something that is held by Indians very deeply over many millennia. That's the sort of behavior that I hope to see India exemplify as it develops its own sovereign capabilities in space exploration.
Professor Jha, it's just so fascinating, and I'm aware of your work. Quite besides the ethos and the importance of policy in ensuring that space debris doesn't exist or is minimized or is dealt with. As an aerospace engineer, the fact is, you would know we've got immense space debris out there. It poses a threat to missions going up. It poses a threat to a lot of satellites which are already in orbit. What are some of the technological solutions to ridding a large part of the Earth's orbit of space debris?
That's a great question, Vishnu. When I look at the idea of circularity from a waste management prospect, the ability to design satellites and rockets that can be reusable, recyclable, repurposed, that's a thing that India certainly could be doing. Right now you have SpaceX, right? They have a reusable, rocket. It would be great for India to develop and also operate reusable rockets. And when it comes to satellites, every single thing that we launch now is a single-use plastic in space.
Yep.
Single-use satellites. And so if India could develop, design, and operate reusable and recyclable satellites, that would be amazing.
Are you a big fan of SpaceX and pushing the frontiers, not least of all in recovering various stages vertically? It's almost unbelievable how they can literally clamp on to stages as it comes down. That's incredible engineering. But the fact that Elon Musk has this huge vision, he's a very controversial figure, but his vision for space, the desire to actually push engineering frontiers and boundaries, is that something that inspires you as an aerospace engineer?
So, as you can imagine, my answer is going to be complex. It's not binary.
There's
right?
nothing easy about space, is there?
There's nothing easy about space. So here's what I have to say, Vishnu, is that, Elon pushing for reusable rockets, I think that's beneficial to the entire planet, and that's great. The manner in which we are launching these things, a lot of his starships have been exploding. He keeps on launching these things. It scatters a lot of debris in the Caribbean. Some of this debris rained on people in Turks and Caicos. That part I dislike very much. And so, on the one hand, the development of the technology for reuse and recyclability, critical. The way in which it's being done, which could be improved on a lot, that is the thing that I guess I want to hold Elon's feet to the fire, so to speak.
All right, Professor Jha, thank you very much for speaking to us. Great hearing your thoughts. It's a great day for India's space program. We've got our satellite up there, our astronaut up there on day one of his mission, another 13 days to go before he comes back down. But it is looking to be an interesting mission. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us.
I appreciate that, Vishnu. My heart goes out to all of you in India. I celebrate with you. I have a lot of love for the folks of India. And I will say this, I heard that Shuk's sent up some Indian food with him to the space station.
He did.
I hope I hope that it wasn't, masala dosa or something like that, because not everybody's stomach can take that.
Well, it is a pretty high calorie sweets, I'm told, but I suppose that they can sort of handle that up there, given that they exercise and all. Thank you so much for being with us. Thanks so much indeed.